Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice. With most, there's a decent chance here that we're going to walk through this and finish the game and there won't be much of anything and that happens here. I think it's high chance of a cliffhanger ending. I doubt we're going to set Dylan's soul at ease or anything like that. I doubt we're going to defeat Hela. We could defeat Hela. Certainly. Interesting that the camera did not adjust for looking upward. So, like, we could defeat Hela and become the new, like, goddess of hell. That, suppose, is a possibility.
Mother, I won't let the darkness trick me again. I know you're safe with the gods. I can feel Hela's gaze, searching for secrets inside of me. Secrets that even I can't see.
So, Dylan
I'm
was
not here to fight my past.
sacrificed to Hela.
I'm here for Dillion.
Wow, that's a weird statement, certainly. This is kind of an odd camera angle, too. Like, it definitely has been 100% a game about telling the player what happened to Senua and her past. I don't even know where the gate is. These voices have not evolved in what they do at all throughout the game. They've just been in the game for no reason. I feel like one, maybe two voices would have been more appealing. So I think we missed one.
The Northmen say the world will come to an end. They call this Ragnarok, the destiny of the gods. First, there will be a terrible winter, 3 years long. Then, mankind will turn on itself. Brothers will fight each other to the death, and people will forget what they owe their kindred. Times will be hard. Crimes will be great. It will be an age of axes and swords. The wind will blow through abandoned halls. Wolves will walk where children played. The world will fall into ruin.
Interesting. There's a couple different paths here. Having seen the trailer for Hellblade 2, there's a possibility that we do trigger Ragnarok. Which that's fine and all, but I don't know where you really go with that. I mean, Darksiders basically started the Christian apocalypse and then was able to make that a thing that kept on happening a lot longer than you would have thought and make story around that. It's just silly that there would be two so very diverse paths. I hope I didn't come up here to find out that I'm just supposed to do a perception puzzle. Oh, I think I probably am doing a perception puzzle, but the good news is I think that's a necessary one, so we're fixing the bridge. Okay, so we are going to to perception puzzle our way to crossing the bridge at some point. And I wouldn't be surprised if we get attacked here. She has too much power, I think, in her 3-hit combo and with these strong attacks, and a little too little power, I would say. Wow, look how glitched that was. The door just disappeared. I would definitely have liked to see a lot more combo fighting system.
No. She cannot bargain with Hella. She's not strong enough to kill. What is Hella?
So there's
No one can bargain.
3 more runes if we find them all, but then there's about 6 we missed.
No. She'd rather die. It's worthless. But it's all she has to give.
Getting a lot of quick time events. I mean checkpoints, saves, quick saves.
A cursed soul.
Of course she is, no matter what she does.
And she just walks across that super easy.
She can fight her. She can fight her at Ragnarok.
She's a warrior. She's got
Hella will want it.
the bridge.
She can't cross the bridge. It's broken.
She has to fix it.
It's too dangerous.
Why is the game
You have to fight her.
showing us the other direction when talking about the bridge?
Back. It's the final task.
Yes, it is. This isn't just a broken bridge, is it? Mother, you showed me how to see further. To see the hidden wonders in our world and explore new paths into the unknown. To lead so that others may follow, or to warn so that they may avoid.
So that's
That
the
is
gate
our gift and
where
our
we
duty.
saw Hell at first. We've gone
I'm
full
not
circle.
going to look away in fear anymore.
Now will audio play from the beginning here?
Their watchmen blow the horn.
Nope.
That can be heard through the whole world.
It
And Odin
totally
will
just...
speak with the severed head of Mimir,
Let's see if we can
which gives
trigger it.
good counsel. The Northmen say the gods will fight their last battle at Ragnarok. Their watchmen will blow the horn that can be
Yeah.
heard through the whole world. And Odin will speak with the severed head of Mimir, which gives him good counsel. The land of the giants will thunder with the sound of their army on the move. The gods will assemble. The dwarves will leave their stones. The frost giants will come from the east. The Midgard serpent will turn up the waves. Eagles will scream and tear at the corpses with their yellow beaks. The ship of the dead will set sail.
I wonder if it was Druth that like sacrificed
She can
Dylan to Hela.
She can still see the secrets of the gods. She thinks he's
Yeah,
special.
that would kind of be yet another betrayal,
She has the sight.
or
She can see their secrets.
it could be that Dylan sacrificed himself or allowed himself to be sacrificed. I think the bridge is fixed, and yet there are floating components. So,
There's an illusion. She's found a way. There's a way. She can see. She must align herself. She can do it.
There's the
She aligns herself.
and so we needed that because we can't go any further on the bridge. knows that we're walking in the shadow now and not really being affected. So the darkness was not the dragon, I don't think, but it does feel like after that sequence, they didn't want us to deal with that issue anymore for a while. This looks like this might be a run maze, and I'm not sure I really am gonna appreciate it. One more after this one.
The Northmen say that at Ragnarok, the
We
gods
missed
will face a ship full of their foes, which
6.
Loki has steered to Asgard.
Maybe 7.
Carries the fire giants, the wolf that will eat the sun, and all kinds of dark creatures. Surt will join them with his sword of fire. The cliffs will crash, trolls will walk the land, men will tread the road to hell, and the heavens will split open.
And it certainly doesn't feel like that's weird to have the door not be the path this late into the game. Definitely feels like Druth is crazy. We only saw Druth about 3 times for the about 30 times we hear him tell us tales of the North. I think it's always wise to have an exit plan. I don't like that the animation pushes the door open, though. You could have just had it take half the time to just remove the bar, and then there could have been a push animation when you press the A button or push forward on the control stick. Here we can see that the graphics are slightly clipping through the wall, the camera is. Also, if she was running, that would be a great point to use her shoulder check ability, which we've seen her use exactly once. Yeah. There's way too much animation around Senua for a game that has 2 gameplay mechanics, neither of which are implemented well or fun to play. Do I want to go up further? I think I do. I guess that is an interesting question. Do you go vertical as a side quest, or do you go horizontal? Probably vertical. Level designers tend not to think vertically as much.
Odin will fight the monstrous wolf and be killed, but his son will avenge him and plunge his sword into the heart of the beast. Freyr will face Surt, but he had given his sword away for love, and without it, he cannot defend himself against the flames. Thor will smite the Midgard serpent to no avail. The sun will grow black, the earth will sink into the sea, the stars will disappear, fire and water will meet, steam will shoot up, flames will play against the sky, the heavens and earth and all the world will be burned, all the gods will be dead, and the warriors of Valhalla and the people everywhere. Senua, prepare yourself for Ragnarok, for it is nigh.
Yep. Of course, people have been saying the world was ending ever since they could even speak. Okay, so here we have the darkness. Alright. So we have a slightly bigger guy here.
Behind you.
Right. This feels like we're getting a very fast focus, and we need to careful not to die, but the game seems like in that instance in particular, it didn't really want to kill you. The problem with a story like this is how can I care about the world ending when the game has not established a world? We have seen a false world from a perspective that is untrustworthy and a crazy person. I feel like you should be able to jump up on this and crawl up to there, but apparently not. We haven't seen anyone who seems to be alive. It seems like the father and the mother are probably dead. If the father is alive, right now, who cares? But, like, all Senua seems to care about is either putting Dylan's soul to rest or possibly bringing him back to life. But if it's at the cost of causing Ragnarok, if that's really what was going to happen, although there's not been any guaranteed indication that that is what's going to happen, what does that matter? Like, you can be with Dylan for what, a few hours, a few days before the world ends? You're hardly going to live a life together. I wouldn't be surprised if the real goal here for Senua is to simply ensure that she and Dylan both end up in Valhalla. But even the people in Valhalla are supposed to die during Ragnarok. So, at least that's what it just said. So we're back to fighting on the bridge. Like, you can deflect this all you want, but it doesn't seem like it does anything. I think the idea is probably that you're supposed to deflect like enough to get the focus, and then having the focus, you can then do something with your against the shield characters. Otherwise, it seems like the shield characters pretty much have as almost an infinite defense against you. And even in focus mode, I'm still having to deflect, but it feels like it's getting easier. Not really a great point to have a fight on a bridge. Didn't work that well before, it didn't work that well here.
She's going to die. Wait. What happens when she dies? What happens to me when she dies?
The voices are afraid. Subtitles have long since stopped working.
What? What happens when she dies? What happens to us? What happens to us? We die too. Do we die too? We die too. I don't want to die.
We'll all die someday.
I don't want to die.
And when everyone's gone, even the gods will die.
We don't want to die.
We have alternating
Stop. Turn back. Stop.
alternating lanterns.
Stop. What happens to us?
If this was a game that has like a cheap bad ending where you stop, I'm not willing to go with that.
I'm sorry. I didn't ask you to be a part of me. If you don't want to die with me, then leave me alone.
I assume
I don't want to die. Please stop. Please.
Okay, this is just a cutscene. Thought we were gonna have to activate it.
Please stop. You'll never come back if you go there.
There's nothing to go back to.
We only have each other now. Don't abandon
This
me.
might be the point where they
Everyone
heal her
suffers.
face.
They were right about me.
Listen to me, not them. They were afraid. Like children scared of the dark.
So was I.
They made up monsters to fill the void. That doesn't make them real.
They made them real.
No!
Follow your soul and let go of the Senua of old. For there lies your weakness, and the darkness will find it.
So, walking through this mirror apparently kills the voices.
It's not like the old stories, is it? The noble warrior facing evil in search of victory and honor. Clear dividing lines.
I don't even know what these are supposed to be.
Oh, this place is
These-
not quite like that.
Lantern holders.
It's as if it knows that true torment lies within. Memories you cannot defeat, cannot escape.
I don't know if they're supposed to be animals or headdresses or
This is
what.
her hell.
This definitely feels like this game could have started off as a Christian, like Dante's Inferno game. Wow. And it's just gonna straight up tell me you missed some runes. So, you suck. That may be the bad ending. Now we're back to dark rooms with CGI cutscenes.
Turn away, Senua! Turn away, Senua!
Do you see it, Senua? Do you see the darkness? Faces fear and suffering.
You can see it.
I remember it clearly now.
She has nothing to fear anymore. The gods have saved your mother. Through my hand.
You killed her.
It is the will of the gods.
Fuck the gods! You did this to her! Why?
This is what happens when you listen to the voices of the underworld. They crawl into your soul and rot you from the inside. Defy the gods like your mother, and the darkness will come for you too. You understand, Senua?
Probably would have helped the backstory more if they had established the father as being like the druidic priest.
You cursed me with your own madness. I was just a child. You created this darkness. You created this darkness so you could hide behind it.
Only suffering brings salvation. It is the way of the gods.
So we now see Hela is half burned like the mother.
It was all a lie. You are a lie! She didn't defy the gods. She defied you. And so you killed her.
You didn't pray to the gods. You prayed to your mother.
So we're seeing bodies
Your
kind of a
mother,
symbol
who was too weak to fight the
in
darkness,
shadows.
abandoned you.
You tortured her. You killed her. You are the darkness.
So I'm just gonna walk slowly here. I could run. So Hela looks like the mother, so I don't know if that's because Hela took on the form. But we assume that the demon voice is the father and not somebody else, some other druidic priest. Seems like the audio's going quiet, so wasn't really that much to say.
Those rituals, the years of isolation, the pain that still haunts you. It was the only way to fight the curse within you. The darkness is inside you and it will destroy you.
You're a liar!
You can see her other arm, it looks
The darkness is here,
like it's got some darkness around it too.
and it will watch as you draw love's dying gasp.
I won't let you kill me.
Alright, so we've got a now mode here, I think, specifically that is all about doing a larger amount of damage. So we are like one-shotting these characters instead of even really having a real struggle with it. But this is so button mashy, and it's just so weird that this isn't the way that you would have been about halfway through the game. There's also some weirdness in that we are now hearing voices again. And these guys are just getting turned to dust. I want to try and get the shielded ones killed.
I can see through your darkness. You're a liar and a murderer. And if you really are Hela, then I have a sword here that can kill a god.
Am I supposed to be walking through the light? Or am I supposed to be making a path? Oh, so we can't just walk towards this path.
Run forward, moving backwards to wallow in your miserable past. You're making a mistake searching for Dillion. The same mistake that killed him in the first place.
This doesn't feel like it's going to really benefit from a second fight. If it was going to do that, it should have, like...
I'm trying to save you from yourself.
There should be a whole second group of enemies.
The darkness, the butchering of Dillion by the Northmen. You saw it yourself.
You told everyone I was cursed. They believed you. I believed you.
Tell me, Senua, where is Dillion's soul if the darkness is alive? How you saved her?
And you can see the darkness is like all the way up her face and into the brain.
I know he's here. Dillian, I know you're here. Hold on. I'll find you.
Alright, so they're just gonna have us fight this. And then apparently we're going to boss rush the previous fighters, which is all good and well. Like, you couldn't have had us fight like this fire guy. The fire guy in particular doesn't make a lot of sense because his, like, there seems really not to have been any real trauma around fire. Anyways,
Dillian! Where is he?
so
You're trying to trick me again with your lies. I know he's here.
and the illusion guy
You took him from me.
didn't
You
really
have
make that
him.
much sense either.
He's gone. Dillian is dead.
See, now it's shrunk down to a much smaller character.
Or what? What can you do to me that you haven't already? Fight me. Come on.
You betrayed your own father. You betrayed the gods in search of Dillian, in search of love. Look where that's got you. Let go of the battle. Let go of redemption. Let go.
Am I supposed to get anywhere close to her? It seems like she's...
Your darkness hurt anyone else.
Behind you. Behind
So,
you.
it would really suck to die right now. Like, this clearly is supposed to just be a cutscene.
Let go of Dillian. Let go of your battle. You're killing yourself. Behind you.
Like, this game really doesn't want to, like, doesn't want to just end. It wants you to fight through this whole thing, and then they...
Behind you.
Come on.
Let go of your battle. You don't have to. Behind you.
There's, like, no good reason why the voices would have come back. And there's no good reason for the story to end with you giving up. Plus, that really doesn't leave you with any kind of...
Be careful, Senua.
Like, you really don't have a, like, sequel if Senua dies here. But apparently you were supposed to die there. Because that went to a cutscene. And I guess that means the darkness completely takes over your body. And the darkness now looks a lot more like burns. Like you were like Druth, or you were Druth and you ran through the flames. Unless I just got some kind of secret achievement for losing the game. Hella really needs to say something and explain who she is or what she is. Hella picks up the sword. Wouldn't be. It would be surprising. It would be interesting if this whole journey has been about getting Hella this sword, and so you've empowered an enemy who's just using you. Again, we have just weird camera angles, bad camera angles.
If you're alive, and there's no darkness, then you never took him from me, did you?
This would be funny if there's
Save Darian.
there is no head there. It's just like a cabbage. Or it's a doll's head or a rock. There never was a Dylan.
Is that what you want me to believe? After all you've done to me? And to him?
Yeah, it seems like the whole game is just going to end on this cutscene.
But you're a liar! You crawled into me to confuse me and deceive me. But I know he's here. I know you have him.
Seems like the head is kind of clipping into her body in this animation.
I'll give you my life. That's what you want, isn't it? My soul. Take it. I'll be a slave for you. I'll fight with you at Ragnarok.
Well, maybe that's what the sequel will be, is she'll be the Silver Surfer and Hela will be Galactus. And she'll be in charge of fighting on Hela's behalf at Ragnarok. I guess that gets you into a video game experience. Assuming they can actually program a video game experience before then. Yep. They really would have to step up their game in the sequel to make it. I mean, it's got to feel completely different to satisfy me if the sequel came out. So much so that I'd be very hesitant to play a sequel regardless, having now seen the main game and how little there actually is in this game. Even trying to criticize it on the story, it's just not that good.
No power over me.
So Hela's, I guess, just gonna take her up on that offer and stab her through the gut. I wouldn't be surprised if this is once again a vision of her death. They kind of stopped doing that, but they did establish that as a thing at the very beginning of the game. We really never got an explanation as far as the mirror.
I learned the hard way to not be afraid of death, Senua.
See, Dylan there, he just looks like full motion video.
You turn your back on death, and all you can see is the shadow.
But this is just cutscene, so whatever.
The longer you hide from it, the longer the shadow grows until all you can see is darkness. When our time comes, we must look death in the eye.
It's funny, Senua is like squeaking and struggling to breathe. You can just barely hear it.
Only then can we let go of our fear. And emerge from our darkness.
Yeah, I don't know if this is gonna throw me back into gameplay. It looked like Dylan had like 4 scars on his hand, like he'd been scratched or grabbed, probably by Senua. So maybe Hela is going to actually take her up on that. Hela's entire body, you can see, is carved in runes and charcoal and ash. They've strategically put shadows over where nipples would be, I suppose. What would be funny is if Hela is just another copy of Senua. The implication is that this has all been happening in her mind and she's been fighting herself the whole time.
Never forget what it is like to see the world as a child, Senua. Every autumn leaf is like a work of art. Every rolling cloud a moving picture. Every day a new story. We too emerge from this magic, like a wave from the ocean, only to return to the sea.
And she seems like she's in a completely different place now. And her face is all scarred up.
Do not mourn the waves, the leaves, and the clouds. Even in darkness, the wonder and the beauty of this world never leaves us. It is always there.
I guess we're at the very top of the mountain.
This is where my story once began. And so it has to end here. Because I cannot see further than this.
Follow us. We have another story to tell.
My friend. Go with her. This now will be your story to witness. Goodbye.
So it is literally cliffhanger ending, showing a cliff. Apparently we did kill Hela, or Hela replaced herself with me. Now, what I'm looking for in the credits here is a really small number of people. That this is some Team Ninja side project, and they were working on this back when they were, like, I guess working on DMC, Devil May Cry reboot. Already though, as far as lead developers, that's too many people. It's far too many people. Yeah. Not good. Like, I more and more, as I play these games that were mainstream video game critics like darling game of the year suggestions, things that were just so overhyped, and I play them and I find out, oh no, this is an average game, or worse in the case of Hellblade. Hellblade is less than an average game. If the credits were telling me that only 3 people worked on this, I might be a little bit more lenient, but we've got like 4 musicians, and this is the only song on the credits that I even recognize because the voices were talking the whole time. Apparently there were Furies. I don't know what that even means. Like, who were the Furies? Was that the shadow people we were fighting? You can see they paid for stunt coordinators and stunt performers and actors, and there's so much focus on that. Here, that the credits now are labeling everything as Ninja Theory support, Ninja Theory directors, makes it also feel like this was not actually made by Ninja Theory so much. And then mental health advisors. Do you really need... Gosh, how many did you... Like, 7? That's ridiculous. You don't need 7 mental health advisors. I have no idea what welcome would be. Content partners. Ah, okay. So they probably worked heavily with all these other companies to either get free licenses or get free work to make something that looked very pretty, as almost like a NVIDIA video card tech demo. Then special thanks to the ninjas. I have no idea who that is, if that's people that supported the game. I don't think this was a Kickstarter game or anything like that. That would almost make more sense that it would be such a disappointment. But yeah. I am not sure how you can leave this game happy when it doesn't really establish anything at all as far as what the next story is. So, like, there's no bad guy unless you're going back to try and kill the father, which maybe that's it, but we don't even know if the father is alive. Unlike the God of War reboot, this has taken the Viking Celtic cultures, and instead of empowering Senua like God of War character would be empowered with a whole bunch of attacks and abilities at the end of the game, she barely has any new abilities or attacks that different from what she started the game with. So from that starting point, it doesn't work. You would almost certainly want to, in the sequel, if you're going to actually make the game make the sequel an actual game, you would want to have it happen several years in the future and establish an abilities, and that way you can throughout the game gain more abilities. Hellblade help.info. If you'd like to find out more about psychosis or mental health difficulties, visit this. They had that idea so up their butt, and this is not an education by any means as far as mental health problems. That's the kind of stuff that should be in indie games, game jam games, or visual novel type games, things that are not demanding the high level of the high level visuals that they've put into this game for kind of no reason. And yeah, I guess you just have to start the whole game over again to get the final achievement, and there's really no reason for that. Like, it comes with this video
Stormy seas and lost souls.
where they clearly were trying to
She's dreamt of this before.
highlight this. Now, what's interesting is, are they going to take off the cursor?
They say dreams are visions of our memories, thoughts, and
Nope.
fears.
Seems
As
like
seen by
that's
our
gonna
own
just
eyes.
be it. They name like 5 mental health advisors at the beginning of here,
But what if each one of
and
us
then
is always dreaming, even when awake,
some more mental health consent
and we only see what our inner
advisors.
mind creates for us?
So
Is this what hell
can
is?
you fast forward through this,
World shaped
or
by
is this
Senua's nightmare?
a less effective video player than just giving me a video file?
Because if you believe that Senua's reality is twisted,
No subtitles.
you must accept that yours
This definitely feels like
too.
this could have been just a video that was like a 4K rendition of a video that you would sell on direct to DVD or put
Hellblade:
out.
Senua's Sacrifice is a video game about Senua, a Celtic warrior on a vision quest into Viking territory. But what sets our hero Senua apart is that she suffers from severe psychotic mental illness.
Yeah. They just do such a bad job with that. There are several point and click adventure games I would compare
The original idea for
that
Hellblade
where
was
the
to create a
characters
fantasy
have
world,
different
a journey of suffering,
like
but one where the
mental
fantasy world is
perspectives,
not
um,
another planet or alternate universe,
and
but a world that is constructed in
that seems
Senua's
like
mind.
that would have been a better way to do that.
To
Have
do so
one
would
character
make
with
placing
one
physical
disability.
illness at the center of the experience.
That character didn't
A
exist in the
subject that is
game.
still considered taboo,
That
but a
character never
challenge
looked
would
that
be
way.
terrifying and exciting in equal
If that's
measure.
Senua, unless that's supposed to be a
In
shadow
Hellblade, the
Senua,
starting
which would have
point
been a
was
good
an
idea to
newly
fight a
discovered
shadow
Celtic goddess called
Senua.
in Ashwell, Hertfordshire. When first discovered, her name was thought to be Senua, a name which I liked and kept. I wondered if Senua might have been a Celtic warrior like Boudica who stood up to the Romans. While the Romans had conquered all of Europe, there was a group of Celts
This
up in the furthest reaches of the Roman Empire
probably
that did
is a
not
video that is just going to prove just how
So
in
the Romans built a wall
his
called
own
Hadrian's
head
Wall that
the
spans
writer,
across
the
Britain
creator,
from sea to
the
sea
main
to keep
force
the
behind this
British
game
barbarians
was.
at bay.
And he probably convinced
The Picts were known for their war
a
paint, painting
lot
was
of people
work,
in
and
Ninja
they
Theory
mounted
to
heavy
support
concrete
him
armor.
because they had
And
no
so
better
Senua would
idea
be a
and
barbarian
no other
painted in this
projects.
image.
What's your name?
The only other thought I had here was that the feature might literally be the movie version of the game, which honestly,
Oh.
you could have overlapped a lot of the dialogue stuff on top of
Japanese occupied
cutscenes
Scotland and was
and
inhabited by the Picts.
boiled down
Steeped
what
in
was
history
about a
and mystery,
6-hour
and so I made
experience
all Picts
into
Senua's
a
home, and
hour
set
and
the
50
stage
minute
for her
experience.
crisis.
But even at that, they failed to
In the
make a
late 8th
proper
century, the
movie
first
because it
Vikings
doesn't really
landed
have
on
an
the
ending.
Orkney Islands. The population of the Picts crashed
You would
thereafter,
almost want to
replaced by the
see
Norsemen of the 9th century.
it be a
Were they wiped out?
like
We
40
don't know
minute
for sure, but it
episode.
would seem likely given the reputation of the
Yep.
Vikings. The
Wasn't
Norsemen's
unheard of
brutality is
in the
legendary.
early days of
High-ranking
90s
leaders and
anime to
chieftains
have
of the tribes they
these
conquered
like
were often offered
40-minute
as
episodes,
sacrifice to their
first
gods.
episodes of series
The
that
most
never
brutal of
went
these
anywhere
sacrifices
and
was
never
known
got a
as the Blood
sequel.
Eagle.
And that's very much what this feels
I
like, is a
imagined
modern
Senua as a
take
young
on
female warrior who
the
returns home
original
from
video
exile to fight
animation
an
or
army
the
of
original
Danes,
animation
brutally
videos,
sacrificed to a
OAV,
Norse god
OVAs,
by these
um,
hellish warriors from a faraway land.
mean the same thing, two different
I imagined the horror of this
words
world
for
and
the
how
same
it would have
phrases.
dragged her deep into mental torment.
Suppose it is possible that I am just also a bit of a sociopath and did not relate with Senua, whereas I feel like whereas other people may have been able to relate to her a lot more. I don't think that's true, because I definitely related with the characters in The Cat Lady, and the
came to
cat
learn
lady
that
is
Celts have
a
sophisticated and nuanced perspective on the
almost
nature of
point and click
mental
game. It doesn't actually
One
have a
term
mouse
they
support.
used was Gelt.
Um,
A Gelt is a man or woman who has been driven mad by a curse, battle trauma, or grief.
but like
the Gelt would take to a life in the woods in search of
yeah,
penance, punishment,
I would
and
definitely
purgation.
recommend
And so Senua became a
playing the
cursed
cat
by
lady
darkness, looking for redemption
over
in
this
the
game
wilds.
any day, and the cat lady doesn't look anywhere as good as this. But
Another word the Celts
I don't
used to
think it
reference
really
to mental
benefits.
disorders was truth, meaning fool, or liar, one who utters the words of God.
Yeah, looking at
They tell
this
of the mad
setup,
sinner who flees battle into exile
yeah,
and takes on a
that
beastly
does not look
nature,
like a
growing
professional
feathers in his
setup.
body.
As far as that
character called
recording
Truth in
studio,
Hellblade is
that
based on a
recording
little-known
studio.
person called Findan, an 8th century Irish Celt who was captured and enslaved by the Vikings, but eventually escaped to Orkney where he became a monk.
I will tell you my stories of hell.
This also would have been an interesting take on trying to
Upon
make a
meeting
game
Senua,
like
it would be his
Myst.
stories that
Like,
fuel her quest
the
to
first
uncover
Myst
the
game
world
had
of gods.
live action video in tiny little pages that you could see, tiny little squares on the screen, because it was such an old game. And then throughout the rest of the game, you are just walking around different environments, solving puzzles to get from point A to point B. But if that was the idea, then
So
that
the
wouldn't
stage
work.
was set for a new adventure, a journey
See, even
into
that
an
studio
awesome
does
world
not look
called
like it
Hell,
is
a vision quest
properly
fueled by madness and myth, a
established.
fantasy that was created by Senua's own mind, and one that we would experience
You would want
through her eyes.
some markers on the walls, I would think, and the floor, more than what you see to establish the camera angles, and that's probably why so many of the videos are wobbly.
Mental illness such as psychosis is still taboo and rarely acknowledged in a century of cinema, never mind the new medium of games. Where it does feature, it often conflates psychosis and psychopathy associated with a lack of empathy. It is unfortunate that these two words sound so similar.
This is a real stretch, I think.
I must admit that I didn't have to look very far to discover my own ignorance of the subject. So we reached out to Paul Fletcher, psychiatrist and professor of health neuroscience at University of Cambridge.
Psychosis is a descriptive term, and it refers
I'm
to
a little surprised that
having a loss
the
of
BBC
contact
didn't
with
fund the development of this game.
objective reality.
Although
So
I
it's
don't know if the
characterized
BBC
by,
or British
two
government funds
main
video
sets
games.
of symptoms. One of
Really.
them is hallucinations, where somebody experiences perceptions when there is no actual objective thing out there to perceive.
Who are you?
And the other is delusions, where somebody comes to very often bizarre, unpleasant, frightening beliefs when there's
But
no
it is a
evidence in
complete
favour of them.
misstatement to say that in media, mental health problems have not been covered a ton. They totally have.
We reached out to welcome
Maybe
the
not
biomedical
always
research
accurately,
outfits and
certainly,
research
but
and awareness programs aimed
it
at
certainly has been covered. Mommy Dearest is one that comes to mind as far as a movie. Plenty of books, plenty of movies.
Schizophrenia and psychosis.
Racerhead is another movie that probably covers mental illness fairly well. They are really up their own butts, I would have to say, if they're claiming that they're the first artists to ever cover this. Like half of the paintings, ancient paintings, like Van Gogh, even like
that could enrich and change the very nature of
covered, was talked about, had mental illness, depicted some of it. The Scream, for instance, like that painting is a depiction of someone having an auditory hallucination and grabbing their ears. People misinterpret it, and it's supposed to be that, and they think it's the person that's screaming. No, it's actually a person who heard a hallucination of a scream.
Games are capable of drawing you in for hours on end, playing the role of a character who is different from you, experiencing their perspective.
I'd say the Tomb Raider reboot, while it didn't probably cover too much mental issues, mental permanent conditions, it definitely had hallucinations.
Psychosis, we would have to simulate voice hearing, a common attribute. But how can we simulate something we have no first-hand
I guess
Professor Charles
what
Furley,
they did was
hearing from Durham
they
University,
labeled all the
offered
voices as
Hearing
furies.
voices is an experience that is usually associated with severe mental illness. And crucially, we know that hearing voices is a part of
They have the
ordinary life.
special
For many people who
recording
don't meet the criteria of
equipment
mental
to do 3D audio better.
Yeah. Oh, that's not him in real life.
We know voices vary according to where they appear in space. Voices can appear far away in the distance. They can appear right there in
So
your ear.
they had people just running around the studio
Based on the information
whispering
Professor Furley
audio.
provided, I put together a sound
And I had
board to
headphones
provide
on the whole
scientists
time.
to
I
the
never
studio.
got any
We
kind of
recorded the
motion
actors
in the
using a
audio,
binaural microphone,
which
records
they
the
probably
three-dimensional
told them when they
position
were
of
actually
sound,
recording to
replicating the
stand
way
still
sound is
so
heard
they
by
wouldn't
human
make
ears.
any
Gives you
noise
an
with
incredible
dragging
sense
their
of the
feet
person
or
you are listening
their
to is
shuffling their
right there
clothes.
beside you.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear it
Rachel
now
from the Voice Collective came to our studio with
circling
young voice
around,
artists
but
to speak to
in the
our
game
team.
I never noticed any
They
of
talked
that.
at length about their experiences
Part of the
and
problem
they
with
listened
the
to our
idea of doing
tests
3D
and gave us
audio
feedback on
is
how we could improve
it's
them.
just very natural to turn the character to face a sound, so it's always going to sound in the front foreground.
Experience. It's testament to how Ninja Theory have been listening to what the researchers are saying, but also crucially listening to the experts by experience.
You would have thought
What they've
Ninja
come
Theory
up
by
with
that name
is
was
so
a
compelling.
Japanese
It's by far
company,
the
or I
best
would have assumed
representation I've
that.
heard of
But
what these experiences
I
are
vaguely
like.
recall that they were kind of a shocking underdog when they were allowed to make
Other
DMC
common attributes of psychosis
Devil May
are
Cry,
visions and
because
flashbacks.
that
We work
Konami
with
game was
recovery
being handed
college
over
youths to
to
work with and care
this
for people with
non-Japanese
severe
company.
mental disorders. A group of service users gave us their first-hand account of what they experience.
Sometimes when the vision or what we're seeing is too much, it becomes more difficult until
They
eventually
almost certainly
don't
wasted
see anything.
The people we
thousands
spoke to,
upon
stories they told were
thousands of
fascinating,
dollars
harrowing, and
going
mind-blowing. The
trying to make
reality
a
of what people
game
experienced was vivid,
more
far exceeding what I
impactful
could possibly have imagined.
because of
We went
depictions
away
of
itching to
mental
represent
illness.
some of these visions and flashbacks in the
And
game.
at a certain point, it's just exploitative. Because the story did not say, here's an interesting, well-written character in Senua, and she happens to suffer from a mental illness. The story said, here is an empty shell of a character we didn't bother to write, and we're just going to cram that shell with every single mental illness we can think of and try and make game. They're going to try to make a game around that, and they failed to make a game around it, and it's really just exploitative. Like, if you told me, for instance, that like Luigi had autism from the Mario Brothers, that would be very surprising and interesting, since he hasn't really shown any symptoms of that in 35 years of history. But at the very least, then, you have a character in Luigi who's been somewhat developed, and it would make some sense. But also that would also feel like that was just tokenism at that point. So it's a very dangerous middle ground you have to ride, where you are introducing a new character and introducing their disability if they do have a disability, and not giving a disability to somebody who's already established and expected not to have that disability.
With their help, flashbacks, visions, and changes in perception were woven into the story and gameplay of Senua.
Like, you definitely in this game could have had abilities where Senua was very powerful and a good fighter and did not have any mental problems whatsoever. Then she gets smacked in the head with a shield and has like traumatic brain injury. It's not unbelievable that somebody with a head injury develops mental imagery.
I met someone who would often see hanging corpses in a room, so real that she would sometimes try to rescue them. The panic and fear that comes with such visions is entirely understandable, and it can be a living horror for some.
Worthless.
Yeah.
Weak. Pathetic. Go on. Feel sorry for yourself.
If anything, if they were going to interview a person with a disability, they should have stuck to one person.
And so I was perpetually torn in making Hellblade. Had we gone too far with our representations, or not far enough?
Broken and lost.
I don't really even have much to say about the representation. It's like, I think it was mostly accurate. I think the demon voice probably is a little bit too much on the
There's
nose.
another aspect of psychosis that is much harder to explain, but one that I think video games are uniquely able to represent, which
But
are often called delusions.
People begin to see
Like,
patterns in the world. They begin to link things that
the bigger
most
problem,
people
certainly, and I've said it
most of the things
dozens
that
of
we might
times
think would
here,
be
is
coincidence or you know, not worth commenting on. Nevertheless, that might have a particular salience or importance for them.
One individual described how everyday words, sounds, colours and objects were steeped in meaning to him, forming a strange and sinister puzzle that he was determined to solve but could not quite get to the bottom of.
Yeah.
It's not
Like
just
the
brain
movie The Number
dysfunction.
23.
It's not like the system shut down. It's actually an incredibly creative
If
process.
that
The
one person
creates a
hadn't given
world
him that
populated
feedback,
with
then the game
voices,
pretty much wouldn't have had any
terrors, and they're completely
gameplay
neuroscientists.
mechanics.
They believe in it.
We often invite people into the studio to play the game. In one of our playtests, they played through much of the game, making associations between runes, secret messages, and the threat of darkness that stalked them. There are many things that happen in the world of Hellblade that make perfect sense.
Wonder if they
Senua's mind,
made a
the
huge
dark
mistake
plot
here
that's
and
killing her
had
slowly
people
from
with
within,
mental
the
disabilities
secret
play the
runes of
game.
gods that block her path to
That
Hellblade, and
would
strange associations that exist in
would
the
be
game
weird.
to confirm.
Unless this game was supposed to be
Complete
some
Senua's
kind
quest,
of
you have to internalize and accept the
exposure
evil meaning
therapy,
behind
but
the
it's
scenes
just like the
grace.
absolute wrong
Afterwards,
way
they said
to
that they
establish
didn't
something
seem to
as an
get
exposure
supplemental
therapy device to
People
try
with
to make a
delusions
video
of all
game
sorts
around
would
it.
argue the same thing, that they are not aware of their experience being abnormal in any way.
I need this sword.
And kind of as a, if I can claim myself to be an average adult,
This is a set of symptoms common in psychosis.
I don't feel like
But
I
people with lived
was
experience were
particularly
keen to emphasize another point, that it is
like
wrong to define a person by the
discompassionate
symptoms.
against
Quite
people
often,
with
the illness comes not from the symptoms, but from the stigma, isolation,
discompassionate
and
around
stigma that comes
people
about
with
from the
mental
rest of society.
disabilities to start at the beginning of this game, and I don't feel like I'm any more compassionate as far as people with mental disabilities after it.
needed
I would have
someone to
much
portray
preferred to
someone who could believably
have spent the
internalize
last 6
their
hours
suffering.
playing the American McGee Alice games, Alice and Alice Madness Returns, instead of this.
Melina Jurgens,
And
our
that's a
video
very
editor,
similar
had been a stand-in for
concept as
Senua
a
over a few months while we perfected our motion capture techniques. Without
yeah.
realizing it, she had already auditioned for the role.
I
and
don't
knew her
think
well enough to know that I didn't have to teach her to
they
act,
did
but
a
to
good
relive
job
her
with
own
this. I
internal
think they were
pain.
trying to
As
teach
often is the
themselves
case,
motion
therefore,
capture,
supplemental language are never far
and because they were trying to do that. But you can see how the cameras are right in front of her face, and that's why you have this weirdness,
hope is that by creating a
weird
compelling
camera
and
angles,
aspirational
and there's
character
nothing
for
else
someone who
really
feels
around
very
her in
much real,
most
albeit
shots.
in a
It's just
fantasy
darkness.
setting. We can provide a lens into her reality.
Also, you could see she was moving around
And this
as
is
she
where
was
storytelling comes into
emoting, and
I imagined her life
that
based
explains the
on
shaky
common threads in real people's
images.
lives. She was
And
always
had
prone
they
to
used
psychosis
a
as child.
actual actor, I think they,
Her mother
instead
Galena
of
also heard voices and had
something
visions, so
else,
perhaps there was a
they,
genetic
it seems like they just kind of
aspect. Or perhaps
picked
it was
up their
cultural, as she
co-workers to
lived
be
in a
the
world
actors,
without
and
science, of gods
had
and
they used
superstition,
actual
as
actors,
exemplified by
and
the Druid father Zimbel.
then they would have
Psychosis developed in her late teens to early 20s and was exasperated by stigma and isolation.
then they
at
would
the
have
hands
known
of the
to
clansmen and
be
their
a bit
fathers.
more still when being filmed, even
It's spreading.
and be more like
The trauma of
conscious
seeing
of their
another demon
movements when they
sacrifice
do
tips her
move.
over the edge, making her remodel her reality around a
And
concept
it
that
really
connects
sucks that
everything.
just now looking at
The
this
darkness.
feature, they tell
So
me
the
that
question
the
is what
demon
Senua
and the
experiences
druid
real,
was the
can
father.
only be answered by saying,
They
yes,
did not
it
make
is,
that clear
it is
enough
her
to me
reality.
at the beginning of the game. I thought that was a possibility, certainly, but they never just directly said it.
Just a matter of time.
Towards the end of the project, service users and professionals that had collaborated with us were invited to see the near final game.
Yeah, they did
There
show
was a chance to see if the game had reflected
the
their views or if it
the
had
game to people with
misrepresented
mental disabilities.
Being involved in especially developing Senua's character,
I think
has been really important, and
it's
being
kind of a
able to
mistake.
bring in my perspective and what I see and what I
You shouldn't be
hear,
making a
and having
game.
that built into the game.
There
has
you can
been a
see
real
they have
privilege.
posters of their other
It's
games they
gritty,
worked on.
and it's meaty, and there are some tough subjects in
Ninja
there
Theory,
that are being tackled with honesty.
not to be confused with Team Ninja. I kind of wish this game had been made by Team Ninja, then it would have at least
I
been
was blown
fun.
away by it today, absolutely blown away. It was just fantastic.
It's funny as this has subtitles and nothing else
Use our
does.
experience in a very creative way. There's nothing tokenistic about the work we've put in. It feels like we've been listened to. Things have been taken on board, and I think there was a lot of realism in the game itself, and it feels very authentic.
Hellblade will give people.
I can't help but wonder if this game
have those experiences.
was only
I'm glad
created
that,
because
the guys at Ninja Theory
there was some
asked
burnout
us to come
at
along and
Ninja
help-
Theory's
help them
office,
build an
and they
experience
brought in a
when it
psychologist,
comes out and get
and
yourself a copy and have a go.
either the person they wanted to have talk to a psychologist wouldn't talk to them and they couldn't single that person out, or so many people were seeing a psychologist anyways that they started to get into that mindset and decided to make a game from that concept.
Into the game in a way that I think I didn't imagine was possible.
This guy's
so
sporting a man
wonderful,
bun,
really
which
wonderful.
that does not age well. I wish there was a lot more to say. I wish there was something I could even be doing right now.
Use the power of
This is
the video
super long. This has been like
change
20
people's
minutes.
perceptions, to increase understanding.
I wouldn't be surprised if this
to make some
is in the game instead of being like a separate free DLC that you could get as a video. Steam has mostly given up on supporting video
For me, it was
on their
really
platform, but they
exciting to
still
see,
do support
something that I
videos directly related to a video game.
being represented so beautifully in a character who's trying to penetrate the mysteries of the
But,
environment
yeah,
in which they've
there's-
been placed, with all of this strange uncertainty and noise and conflicting.
I wouldn't be
information that
surprised
they're
if this
getting.
is in the
I'm
game
very
just to get
excited
it
by this
to
because it's
last a
trying to
little bit longer.
represent mental illness, because
This
I think
game
it
would have been
actually
out
might be offering us
around the
insights
time
we
that
wouldn't
they
get from
implemented the no
scientific
questions asked
explorations, and
2-hour
actually giving us
refund
empathic
policy
view
on
of what it might
Steam,
be
which doesn't mean you can't ask for a refund past 2 hours, but they will start asking
Mental illness has
questions
been with us for as long
eventually.
as we have been on this planet. But why? Why hasn't evolution stamped out this weakness from within our gene pool? I often pondered this question until I realized that the question had an inbuilt.
After she got
It
the
assumes that
magic
being
sword,
differently is a
she
weakness.
should have gotten
The
some
only
kind of
reason we
magical
have computer
ability to
spacecraft,
throw the
medicine,
sword
poetry,
and
art,
summon it back
politics,
to
even
her,
video games is because
or
individuals
shoot out
were
fire
able
from
to
her
simulate
hands or
new
something.
abstract realities in their minds and share them with the rest of us. We need people to be willing to see differently in order for us to progress and survive as society. And we need to be open to these new ways of seeing. And it is this spirit that motivated me to create Senua's story
This-
and share it with you.
This just looks like a crazy person's board, or a creative person's idea board. Yeah, for me that feature does not make me like Hellblade anymore. It just makes me confirm what I had already thought, is that they were obsessed and had the idea of had to stick up their butt about making a game that was going to sell itself 100% on mental disability, to the point where they don't really write a character of any real interest. For as much as the feature said this person, Senua, was supposed to be this important person, it doesn't really do anything. Let's see. if you start a new game, I just want to see real quick if this straight up just does put you at the beginning of the game. Yes, it does. Wanted to see what the photo mode is. Yeah, the photo mode is just this NVIDIA technology that was created where you can do several different things if you want to. You could turn off Senua, you could turn off enemies. I think this is a slightly better photo mode. It would be nice if this was just built into every single game, but it isn't quite yet to that point. And certainly you could get further down this road. So what I want to do is see, the real question though is, how do you take a photo? The one thing you wanted to do, it seems to be missing. You can move, you can look. And you can't have the video playing.
Hello.
So it really does just bring you back to kind of a pointless, and you just can't bring up photo mode when it's disabled. It brings you back to kind of a pointless point that with something like open broadcast software, you can do almost everything that photo mode does, but you can do it with video. So that's why there hasn't been major adaptation or interest really in the photo modes. Yeah. Let's just go through the whole list here and wrap it up. The audio is sold on a gimmick and doesn't really do anything or play anything, do anything interesting with it. I never recognized any music until I heard the music on the credits. And the voices speaking to you were annoying, unhelpful, pointless. They did not make me feel anything. The visuals are incredibly good for Senua, and then pretty bad for everything else, or average at least. We'll bump it up to average for everything else. But then the background art when you're seeing Senua is often nothing, and everything, and the camera angles and the directing there is bad with Senua. Let's see, the video game play, the interactivity, so if you go audio visual interactivity, is awful. It's really, really bad. Seemingly there are no rewards for faces, no achievements at all, not that I can see. So if I missed 5 faces with the mother, I missed 5 faces with the mother. It doesn't seem like that would unlock anything from the game or do anything. It also seems like having all of the runes and hearing the stories from the north really probably wouldn't have changed anything. It didn't really give me a bad ending because I missed some of the rune things, and some of the rune things that a lot of those stories that we heard from beginning to end when we collected in entire sections of runes didn't really do anything or say anything. So they were pretty pointless. Yeah. The light puzzles could have worked much like the game The Witness. Those perception puzzles could have worked fine, but there needed to be a lot more, and it probably needs to be in a game where you're not at risk of mental or physical attack, which then that means that really doesn't work in Hellblade. The action fighting section is the kind of gameplay that probably should be in Hellblade. That way you can have some action and fight things. Although you could have also told the same story from Hellblade's perspective, and it could have just been a point-and-click adventure, and at the end of each chapter something horrific could have happened, much like the cat lady. This could have also been a Dark Souls game, which that would have worked too, as if there was just more enemies standing everywhere and you had to kind of stealth behind them and stab them. That would have probably been fine. It would have made the game feel a little bit longer, but it would have given you a lot more challenge too, and instead of just repetitive button mashing. But once again, I have to say, the key focus when you're not really trying to have any interactivity, and the visuals are just the visuals and the audio is just the audio, the main focus then would be the story, and the story is just not there. So I can't imagine myself playing Hellblade 2. Like, I would have to get it really, really cheap, or somebody would have to gift it to me. It would have to be 3 times the game that this is to even match up. I would put this on a scale of, if good games are A+ games, I would have to put this somewhere around a C minus as a game. No, that's probably a little unfair. Probably C+. But I don't rate games anyways, but yeah. I kind of wish this game was not a critical darling when it came out. And people just said, yeah, it's a game. Whatever. It's short. It doesn't have any real gameplay in it. That would have probably not pushed me to try and play this game as early as I have. And I would have at least delayed the disappointment in that case. This is definitely one of those games that is selling itself on the visuals. Which, yeah. I don't like that. There really are 2 games you could have here. Like, I would definitely take half of this game and turn it into a modern Myst puzzle game, where you get cutscenes and story from that. And then I would take the other half of this game and I would make it into a Dark Souls game, so set around Ragnarok. Both of those concepts, fully fleshed out, turned into actual proper experiences, I think work well. This didn't work well. And I'm in danger of repeating myself if I go any further, so that's going to be it for this series. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos, because that helps me with YouTube. I have a playlist tab on my YouTube page with a playlist from every game I've ever covered, so check that out. And if you want a friend to follow me on any social media sites to get notifications of new videos, there's a bunch of links down below in the description. Also, there's a link to PayPal if you want to support me through that, or you could just friend me on Steam and get me a game off my wish list or a gift card. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.